Recently, on my trip to Wrocław, I recorded a reel when I was walking late at night on the streets of that beautiful city. And basically I said that even though it was late and dark, I felt very safe. That Instagram reel kind of like took off and went viral, and I got a lot of messages. Some of those messages were from people saying that I have to stop and be quiet about this information, because otherwise soon it's not going to be so safe if I keep divulging this out on the internet. And I answered one of those comments by saying that we have to stop this rhetoric because it just gives Poles a bad reputation. And boy, I got a lot of answers to that. People saying that Poles don't care about reputation. Poles don't care about what you think. Or do they? Boom! The first thing we'll talk about is Polish pride. Poles have such a deep-rooted sense of pride in who they are, in their culture, in their language, in their customs, in their food. This is very noticeable when you come here, even as a tourist. You realize that they will always ask you, did you try pierogi? Did you go and visit such and such place? And they're very knowledgeable also about their history and about their heritage. So they always make sure that you go and discover those things. Because historically, Poles have gone through a lot. 120 years of partitions, brutal World War II and the treatment of its citizens, more than 40 years being kidnapped behind the Iron Curtain. Just horrendous things that happened to these people. Yet, of course, their resilience, their pride, and how proud they are of their roots and their heritage has kept Poland and Polish culture alive, even though all these things happened. When you start discovering Poland, as you, for example, move to this country, if you do so, or you start visiting as a tourist more than just your simple weekend getaway, you really get a peek behind the curtain of how Poles are, how they think about themselves and about their own culture. They are unapologetically Polish because they have fought really, really hard against all the currents and all the tides to preserve their identity. And let me tell you, friends, you can feel it immediately. The moment that you start interacting with a Pole, you get this feeling that they are who they are. You take it or you leave it. They have no apologies. They don't have to present masks or faces or nothing. That's it. They don't care what the world thinks about them. At least that's what they convey. And there's truth to that. I do think that Poles sometimes don't care. Because when they don't care, they really don't care. It's like almost as if they don't give a shit. And this I don't give a shit attitude stems from something very Polish: stubbornness. Some of the most stubborn people that I've ever met are Polish people. It's like if you try to tell a Pole that they cannot do something, that's where you're gonna get almost a collective attitude of pissed off. I'm gonna prove to you that you are completely wrong. You cannot underestimate me. And let me tell you, even if you are at the receiving end of this stubbornness, let's say you have a Polish partner and every day you are like, oh my God, I believe that this is worth celebrating because it shows resilience. It shows self-preservation. But here comes the contradiction. Despite this pride and this defiance, there's also a very high need for recognition. And you can clearly sense this because Poles very often want to know, what do you think about them? If you come to Poland, they ask, what are you doing here? If you're learning Polish, why are you learning Polish? these things are happening less and less now these days. I guess the younger generation, this big boom that Poland is having right now, where all these tourists are coming and foreigners and people are making content about Poland. So Poland is a little bit more like, okay, I'm getting some self-validation here. But as far back as 3, 4, 5 years ago, I can tell you from experience that the sentiment that I would get sometimes was that of a country that could not really believe yet that they were so awesome, while at the same time they knew that they were pretty cool. They just didn't quite yet believe it. Maybe they didn't have the external validation just yet. And something that you will find very, very often here is the argument. Is Poland Central or Eastern Europe? Geographically, Poland is in the center of Europe. But ideologically, for the longest time, Poland was more aligned with Eastern Europe. And you get so many people fighting off very hard because Poland always looked at the West with wonderment and trying to be part of this world at the same time being feisty and saying, we are not like those Western countries. We are Poland. We do things better here. It's like, we're not the West, but also we're not the West. Looking and reading and asking to see if the West would validate Poland's opinion and Poland's decisions. So it's undeniable that Poland still to this day carries a little bit of that imposter syndrome. This creates doubt on who they are and if they're good enough. And that leads to self-validation that is oftentimes still hidden and still present inside a lot of Polish people's minds. For a century, Poland had to prove that it deserved to exist. Then during communism and right after, it had to prove that it was European enough and that it could modernize itself. Then after it joined the European Union, it had to prove, once again, that it could catch up with the big, rich countries from the West. So this constant pressure has created a very interesting dynamic where, on the one hand, yes, we're proud to be Polish, we're very proud. On the other hand, they are constantly having to measure up to someone else's expectations. And it has created this need for approval, to get the notch that everything that they're doing is good. It leads to a very interesting situation these days. The young generation in Poland, how do they think? They are different. They have a different mindset. They have been raised, many of them already after Poland no longer belonged to the sphere influence of the USSR. They haven't seen conflict, wars, and all the horrible things that happened during and after World War II. They are growing up with the internet. So it's almost a different Poland. They are more secure in themselves. They speak multiple languages. They work from home. Of course, there's the added element, just the natural progression between generations. Gen Zers, they're different. They don't care as much. They are like hedonists. They want to feel good in whatever they do. I think this is terrific on one hand. On the other hand, of course, like a true millennial, some things need to be addressed, but this is not the video for that. This is about the young Polish generation and how they are changing things. You can see this in the approach that Poland overall is having on its own promotion, how the country is promoting itself through the eyes of young Polish people. Just go and check on YouTube. Don't worry about creators like me that were not born in Poland. Go and check some Polish YouTubers. Ask ChatGPT to give you a list of, the top 50 Polish YouTubers, and see how Western they seem, how different they behave. Still undeniably Polish, but it's different. Very different. It's almost as if they don't have this desire to please anybody. They are who they are. You like it, you don't. But still it's important to mention that in a country where so many people have unresolved issues precisely with identity, and many of these people are the parents or grandparents of this young generation, it means that there are still things that have been passed down even to the younger generation. And my answer is that I think that Poles do care. They care about your respect. They care to have the respect, the appreciation of others, but they don't care about being liked. They don't want to win a popularity contest. They really don't. So it is true what they said. They don't want to be popular, but they want to be recognized. And to go back to my initial comment on that reel that I made, if we don't change the rhetoric, then we are not going to get that recognition and that appreciation, because we're just going to be labeled as something that we're not, labeled as something that they are not. What do you think? Boom! That's all, guys. That's the end of this episode. I hope you liked it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Truly interested, because this is a subject that can be quite divisive. Take it as it is, just my observations, always with a lot of love and kindness towards everyone, especially, and a lot of respect towards Polish people. See you in another episode. Bye-bye.